February 9th, 2026, 3:17 local time. The port of Novorossiysk, Black Sea coast. A tanker slips its moorings in darkness. No AIS transponder active. No Port Authority notification logged in the public maritime registry. Displacement, 115,000 deadweight tons. Hull markings painted over twice in the last 4 months. This ship has a name, or rather, it has had several. Currently registered as the Volga Meridian under a Gabonese flag of convenience, this vessel was known 6 months ago as the Caspian Fortune, flagged in Cameroon. Before that, the Rostov Voyager, registered in Palau. 3 names, 3 flags. 1 mission, move Russian crude oil past international sanctions through waters no one is watching, to buyers who don't ask questions. But someone is watching. And what happens over the next 17 days will stretch Ukraine's war against Russia from the shores of the Black Sea to the coast of West Africa, over 4,000 kilometers from the nearest front line. I'm your host at Navy Battlefront, where we break down the most critical naval operations shaping global power. Today, we're reconstructing an operation that intelligence officials have called the longest-range maritime strike in the history of modern asymmetric warfare. Because in February 2026, Ukraine didn't just hit a Russian ship. It projected force across an entire ocean, and the consequences are still unfolding. To understand how a country with no blue water navy struck a target 4,000 kilometers from its borders, you need to understand what was happening in the shadows of the global oil market in late 2025. Russia's shadow fleet. The term refers to a network of aging tankers, many built in the 1990s and early 2000s, purchased through shell companies in the UAE, India, and Turkey. Their purpose: circumvent the G7 price cap on Russian crude oil, set at $60 per barrel in December 2022. By October 2025, Western intelligence agencies estimated the shadow fleet comprised between 670 and 790 vessels. These ships carried roughly 1.7 million barrels of Russian crude per day, generating an estimated $38 billion annually for Moscow's war budget. The International Maritime Organization flagged the fleet as an environmental catastrophe waiting to happen. Single-hull vessels, expired safety certifications, no proper insurance. But the environmental risk wasn't what caught Ukraine's attention. It was the money. Every barrel of shadow fleet oil that reached a buyer in India, China, or West Africa funded the artillery shells falling on Kharkiv. Every tanker that slipped through the Turkish Straits without inspection carried the financial equivalent of a battalion's monthly ammunition supply. GUR, Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, had been tracking shadow fleet movements since mid-2024. They had a database: ship names, MMSI numbers, ownership chains, port histories, cargo manifests obtained through Allied intelligence sharing. But tracking wasn't enough. In September 2025, GUR's Naval Special Operations Directorate proposed something that had never been attempted before: strike a shadow fleet tanker not in the Black Sea, where Russian coastal defenses were dense and air cover was constant, but in open ocean, far from Russia, far from any battlefield. The proposal sat on the desk of GUR Chief Lieutenant General Kirilo Budanov for 11 days. Sources familiar with the deliberation described it as the most consequential targeting decision of the entire war, not because of the military difficulty, though that was extreme, but because of the strategic implications. Hitting a tanker in the Black Sea was war. Hitting a tanker off the coast of Africa was something else entirely. It was a message. The Volga Meridian was not chosen at random. GUR's targeting cell had been watching this specific vessel since November 2025, when commercial satellite imagery from Planet Labs showed it loading crude at Novorossiysk's Senegalese terminal, Russia's largest oil export facility on the Black Sea. The ship took on approximately 730,000 barrels of Urals blend crude, valued at roughly $49 million at the shadow market discount rate. But the Volga Meridian had history. In August 2025, a Ukrainian naval drone, a Magura VI-5, had struck this same tanker in the western Black Sea, approximately 90 nautical miles south of Odessa. The hit damaged the engine room, started a fire that burned for 6 hours, and forced the crew to beach the vessel near the Turkish coast for emergency repairs. Turkey quietly allowed the repairs. The tanker spent 7 weeks in a dry dock near Samsun. By late October, it was operational again. GUR knew this. They had tracked every day of those repairs. And they knew something else. The Volga Meridian's next cargo run wouldn't stay in the Mediterranean. Intercepted communications between the ship's operating company, a Dubai-registered entity called Petrovolt Marine Services, and a buyer in Dakar, Senegal, indicated a direct crude delivery to the West African coast. This was the opportunity. The Black Sea is heavily defended. Russian naval aviation, coastal missile batteries, electronic warfare systems, and patrol vessels create a layered defense network that makes surface drone operations increasingly costly. Ukraine had lost an estimated 40% of its deployed naval drones in the Black Sea during the second half of 2025, a rate that was unsustainable. But the open Atlantic? No Russian naval presence, no air cover, no electronic warfare, just ocean. The problem was range. Ukraine's Frontline naval drones, the Magura V5 and the Sea Baby, had operational ranges of roughly 450 to 800 kilometers. Impressive for Black Sea operations, completely insufficient for a strike 4,000 kilometers away. This is where the operation entered territory that no military had attempted before. According to sources familiar with the planning, GUR's naval engineering team had been developing an extended-range variant of the Sea Baby drone since early 2025. Designated internally as the Sea Baby ER, this platform featured a modified hull with additional fuel bladders, a more efficient diesel engine producing 280 horsepower, and a hybrid navigation system combining GPS, inertial measurement, and satellite communication for over-the-horizon command and control. Estimated operational range, 2,000 kilometers. Still not enough for a launch from any Ukrainian-controlled territory. Not even close. The solution was audacious and arguably illegal under several international maritime conventions. GUR arranged for 2 Sea Baby ER drones to be transported aboard a civilian cargo vessel, a Moldovan-flagged general cargo ship called the Dniester Wind, from a Ukrainian-controlled port to a pre-positioned launch point in the eastern Atlantic. The drones were disassembled, packed in standard shipping containers labeled as agricultural equipment, and loaded in Odessa in late January 2026. The Dniester Wind departed Odessa on January 28th. Its declared destination, Lagos, Nigeria. Its actual mission, deliver 2 naval strike drones to a set of coordinates approximately 200 nautical miles west of Dakar, Senegal. 2 questions were already forming in the minds of anyone read into this operation. First, how do you maintain continuous tracking of a tanker across 4,000 kilometers of ocean for over 2 weeks? Second, how do you coordinate a strike in waters where you have zero infrastructure, 0 support vessels, and 0 margin for error? The answer to the first question involved an intelligence architecture that would have been impossible 5 years ago. GUR's tracking cell operated from a secure facility in western Ukraine. Their primary sensor, commercial satellite imagery. Through agreements with Planet Labs, Maxar Technologies, and the European Space Agency's Copernicus program, they obtained multiple daily passes over the Volga Meridian's projected course. But satellite imagery alone has gaps: cloud cover, orbital timing, processing delays. To fill those gaps, GUR relied on 2 additional intelligence streams. The first was AIS data analysis. Even though the Volga Meridian's transponder was switched off, It occasionally appeared on AIS networks, brief transmissions, sometimes lasting only minutes, likely triggered when the vessel passed through shipping lanes where running dark would attract attention from coastal traffic monitoring. Each transmission gave a position fix. The second stream was Allied naval intelligence. Sources declined to specify which NATO member provided this support, but British and French naval vessels conduct regular patrols in the Mediterranean and Eastern Atlantic. Maritime patrol aircraft, likely RAF-P-8A Poseidons operating from RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, can track surface vessels at ranges exceeding 400 nautical miles, using radar and electronic signals intelligence. The tracking picture was not perfect. There were gaps, the longest lasting 31 hours as the tanker transited the central Mediterranean between Sicily and Tunisia. During that window, GUR lost the vessel entirely. Analysts considered the possibility that the tanker had altered course, reversed direction, or transferred its cargo at sea. It hadn't. A Copernicus Sentinel-1 synthetic aperture radar pass at 1422 UTC on February 14th reacquired the Volga Meridian south of Sardinia, heading west at 11.6 knots. Course 258 degrees. Destination unchanged. The tanker passed through the Strait of Gibraltar on February 17th. Turkish Straits transit had occurred on February 11th, a passage that should have triggered inspection under the Montreux Convention's wartime provisions, but didn't. Turkey's position on Shadow Fleet transits remained deliberately ambiguous, a diplomatic posture that infuriated both Kyiv and Brussels. Once in the Atlantic, the Volga Meridian was in open water. No choke points, no mandatory reporting zones, no coastal radar coverage beyond Portugal's western maritime surveillance range. The Dniester wind, carrying the two disassembled drones, was already in position. It had arrived at the designated coordinates, approximately 14.8 degrees north, 19.2 degrees west, on February 16th, and was loitering under the pretense of engine trouble. A common enough occurrence for aging cargo vessels that it attracted no attention from passing traffic or Senegalese maritime authorities. February 19th. The Volga Meridian was now tracking south-southwest along the West African coast, approximately 340 nautical miles northwest of Dakar. Speed, 10.8 knots. Estimated time to the strike zone, 28 hours. The assembly phase began. On the deck of the Dniester Wind, a team of 6 Ukrainian naval special operations personnel, who had boarded the vessel separately in Istanbul as civilian crew replacements, began extracting the drones from their containers. Assembly took approximately 9 hours per unit. The Seababy ER drones measured 5.5 meters in length, displaced roughly 1,000 kilograms fully fueled, and each carried a warhead containing 250 kilograms of TNT equivalent explosive, enough to breach the hull of an unarmored merchant vessel below the waterline. The drones were launched using a rail system welded to the Dniester Wind's aft deck and concealed beneath a tarpaulin. First drone deployed at 2:40 local time on February 20th. Second drone at 3:15. Both entered the water cleanly and immediately began running on their diesel engines at a cruising speed of 22 knots. Communication was maintained via Starlink terminals on the drones, a capability that would later become a significant diplomatic issue, providing near real-time video feed and course correction capability to the operations center in Ukraine. The strike window was calculated based on the Volga Meridian's speed, the drone's endurance, and a critical operational constraint. The attack had to occur during darkness. A daytime strike risked visual detection by the tanker's crew, who could potentially maneuver to evade or alert Russian naval assets. Sunset on the West African coast on February 21st, 1847 local time. The drones ran south-southeast for approximately 16 hours, covering 310 nautical miles. Their fuel state was monitored continuously. There was no margin for course corrections larger than 15 degrees. Each deviation consumed reserve fuel that couldn't be replaced. At 14:30 local time on February 21st, 4 hours before the planned strike, a problem emerged. The Volga Meridian altered course. Instead of continuing south toward Dakar, the tanker turned west, bearing 275, and increased speed to 13 knots. The operations center in Ukraine scrambled to interpret the maneuver. Had the tanker been warned? Had Russian intelligence detected the drones? Was this a routine course adjustment for weather or sea conditions? Satellite imagery from a Maxar Worldview 3 pass at 15:08 showed no other vessels in the tanker's vicinity, no naval escorts, no suspicious air traffic. Weather analysis indicated moderate seas, force 4 on the Beaufort scale, nothing that would justify a course change. The assessment came back in 22 minutes. The Volga Meridian was likely adjusting its arrival time. Crude oil deliveries to West African ports frequently involve planned delays. Buyers coordinate with refinery schedules, port berth availability, and payment settlement timing. A westward detour of 40 to 50 nautical miles would delay arrival by approximately 4 hours. This was a commercial decision, not a tactical one. But it created a problem. The drone's intercept solution was now invalid. Their pre-programmed course would bring them to a point where the tanker would no longer be. The operations center recalculated. New intercept coordinates were uploaded to both drones via Starlink. Drone 1 adjusted course 19 degrees west. Drone 2 adjusted 22 degrees. Fuel reserves dropped from an estimated 14% to 8%. 8%. At 22 knots, that translated to roughly 45 minutes of additional endurance. If the tanker changed course again, if the sea state increased fuel consumption, if either drone experienced an engine anomaly, the mission would fail. The drones would run dry somewhere in the eastern Atlantic, sink, and leave no trace. Comment shadow if you think Stuart should have aborted the mission at this point. 1847. Sunset. The sky over the eastern Atlantic darkened. Sea state. Moderate, wave height 1.8 meters. Wind south-southwest at 14 knots. Visibility decreasing. Drone 1 was now 38 nautical miles from the Volga Meridian. Drone 2 was 41 nautical miles out, approaching from a different bearing. A spread formation designed to ensure at least one strike if the tanker attempted evasive action. The Volga Meridian's crew had no reason to expect an attack. They were 4,200 kilometers from the nearest front line. The closest Russian naval vessel, a Project 22,160 patrol ship, was in the eastern Mediterranean, over 3,000 kilometers away. The tanker had no military escort, no defensive systems, no lookouts trained for drone threats. This was supposed to be safe water. 1931. Drone 1's onboard camera activated. Through the Starlink feed, operators in Ukraine could see the tanker's superstructure lights against the darkening horizon. Range: 12 nautical miles. The image was grainy. The camera was commercial grade, not military infrared. But the vessel's profile was unmistakable. A large crude carrier, low in the water, fully loaded. Target confirmation came from the operations center at 1934. Voice authentication between the field commander and the GUR operations director. 2 words in Ukrainian. Dia Pidtverdzhena. Action confirmed. The attack sequence was initiated. Drone 1 accelerated to its maximum sprint speed of 42 knots. At this speed, fuel consumption tripled. Time to impact, approximately 17 minutes. Drone 2 maintained cruising speed on its flanking approach, serving as a backup if Drone 1 was detected or malfunctioned. 1938. Range to target: 8 nautical miles. 1941. Range: 5 nautical miles. The tanker's navigation lights were now clearly visible on the drone's camera. No course change. No indication of detection. 1944. Range: 3 nautical miles. The operator in Ukraine selected the aim point, the tanker's stern quarter, below the waterline, targeting the engine room and rudder assembly. A hit here would disable propulsion and steering without causing a catastrophic cargo explosion. The goal was to cripple the vessel, not create an environmental disaster. This distinction was critical. GUR's operational planning specifically prohibited a midship strike that might rupture the cargo tanks. 730,000 barrels of crude oil spilling into the Atlantic off the Senegalese coast would have created an ecological catastrophe that would have turned global opinion against Ukraine overnight. The targeting was precise for a reason. 1947. Range: 1.5 nautical miles. The drone was now close enough for the tanker's crew to potentially hear its engine, a high-pitched diesel whine over the ocean surface. But the tanker's own machinery noise, the wind, and the sea state provided acoustic masking. 1948-33. Impact. Drone 1 struck the Volga Meridian's stern approximately 1.2 meters below the waterline, slightly port of the centerline. The 250-kilogram warhead detonated on contact. The explosion tore a breach approximately 4 meters wide in the hull plating. Seawater flooded the engine room within minutes. The main propulsion diesel, a MAN B and W6S60ME-C engine, producing 15,200 horsepower, seized as saltwater entered the cooling systems. The rudder hydraulics failed. Electrical power to the stern section cut out. The Volga Meridian was dead in the water. Drone 2 was still inbound, 6 nautical miles out. The operations center assessed the damage via satellite and made a decision. The second drone was not needed. A second strike risked rupturing the cargo tanks. Drone 2 was commanded to self-scuttle. It flooded its own buoyancy compartments and sank in approximately 2,100 meters of water. No evidence. Aboard the Volga Meridian, chaos. The crew of 28, mostly Russian and Indian nationals, scrambled to contain flooding and restore power. The captain, whose name has not been publicly released, transmitted a distress signal on VHF Channel 16 at 1954, 6 minutes after the strike. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is motor vessel Volga Meridian. Position 15 degrees 42 minutes north, 18 degrees 51 minutes west. We have suffered an explosion. Engine room flooding. Ship is without power. Requesting immediate assistance. Over. The distress call was received by the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center in Las Palmas, Canary Islands, and simultaneously by Senegalese coastal authorities in Dakar. Within 30 minutes, the incident was reported to the International Maritime Organization's headquarters in London. The first responder was a Nigerian-flagged container vessel, the MV Lagos Express, which diverted from its course and arrived alongside the Volga Meridian at 22:15. The tanker was listing 4 degrees to port. No fire, no visible oil leak. The crew was shaken but uninjured. The cause of the explosion was not immediately apparent to responders. The Volga Meridian's captain initially reported a possible mine strike, an assessment that caused immediate alarm in international shipping circles. A mine in the eastern Atlantic, thousands of miles from any known conflict zone, would have implications for global shipping insurance rates and naval patrol requirements. It took 72 hours for the truth to emerge. On February 24th, Ukraine's Military Intelligence Directorate released a statement confirming the strike. The statement was accompanied by satellite imagery showing the Volga Meridian's previous loading operations at Novorossiysk, its repair in Samsun after the August 2025 attack, and its route from the Black Sea to West Africa. GUR also released what it claimed were intercepted communications between Petrovolt Marine Services and the Russian Ministry of Energy, confirming the tanker's role in sanctions evasion. The statement was 3 paragraphs. No celebration, no dramatic language, just facts and coordinates. The diplomatic reaction was immediate and severe. Senegal summoned Ukraine's honorary consul in Dakar. Ukraine has no full embassy in Senegal. and demanded an explanation for a military strike within Senegal's exclusive economic zone. The Senegalese government released a statement calling the attack a dangerous escalation of a European conflict into African waters, and demanded United Nations Security Council consideration. Turkey's response was more measured, but equally pointed. Ankara had allowed the Volga Meridian to transit the Turkish straits without inspection. It had also allowed the tanker's repairs in Samsun. Turkey was now implicitly connected to the incident. A vessel it had facilitated was struck in an operation that raised questions about Ankara's enforcement of sanctions and the Montreux Convention. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan issued a statement expressing deep concern and calling for respect for freedom of navigation in international waters. The statement notably did not condemn Ukraine directly, a diplomatic signal that Ankara recognized its own vulnerability on the shadow fleet issue. NATO's response revealed internal divisions. The United Kingdom and the Baltic states issued statements that, while not explicitly endorsing the strike, acknowledged Ukraine's right to target Russian revenue-generating assets under the law of armed conflict. France was more cautious, expressing concern about the precedent of military operations in distant waters by a belligerent state. Germany called for an emergency meeting of the North Atlantic Council. Russia's reaction was predictable in tone, but unprecedented in specificity. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called the strike maritime terrorism and demanded that the United Nations classify Ukraine's naval drone program as a threat to international shipping. Russia also announced it would provide naval escorts for shadow fleet tankers, a commitment that, if implemented, would require diverting warships from the Black Sea and Mediterranean, stretching an already overstretched Russian Navy. The escort announcement was significant. Russian naval analysts estimated that providing continuous protection to even a fraction of the shadow fleet's tankers would require a minimum of 12 to 15 surface combatants operating in rotation, vessels Russia did not have available without degrading its presence in other theaters. GUR hadn't just disabled a tanker. It had forced Russia into a resource allocation dilemma. But there was a cost. The operation exposed capabilities that Ukraine had worked to keep secret. The existence of the Sea-Baby ER, with its extended range, was now public knowledge. The use of civilian cargo vessels as drone transport platforms was now a known tactic, one that would make every Ukrainian-connected cargo ship a potential target for Russian intelligence scrutiny. And the reliance on Starlink for over-the-horizon drone control raised questions about SpaceX's role in enabling military strikes far from the recognized combat zone. SpaceX issued a statement within 48 hours saying it was reviewing the use of Starlink terminals in this context. The statement stopped short of cutting Ukrainian military access, but signaled discomfort, a reaction that could limit future long-range operations. The insurance industry responded fastest of all. Within 1 week of the confirmed strike, the Joint War Committee of Lloyd's of London expanded its listed war risk areas to include the Eastern Atlantic from the Strait of Gibraltar to the Gulf of Guinea. Insurance premiums for tankers transiting these waters increased by an estimated 300 to 400% overnight. For shadow fleet operators already working on thin margins with minimal insurance, this was devastating. 3 shadow fleet tankers, scheduled for West African deliveries in March 2026, reversed course in the Mediterranean, rather than face the new insurance and security environment. An estimated 2.1 million barrels of Russian crude failed to reach African buyers that month. The financial impact on Russia was measurable. According to the Kiev School of Economics, the strike and its cascading effects, insurance spikes, delivery cancellations, the cost of announced naval escorts, reduced Russian oil revenue by an estimated $180 million in the first month alone. That figure doesn't include the replacement cost of the Volga Meridian itself, estimated at $28 million for a vessel of its age and condition. Subscribe if you want to see how Ukraine's long-range maritime campaign develops. This is only the beginning. The Volga Meridian remained adrift for 6 days. A Senegalese Coast Guard vessel, the Fouladou, arrived on station on February 23rd and established a security zone around the stricken tanker. Environmental monitoring confirmed no significant oil leakage. The strike had been precise enough to avoid breaching the cargo tanks. On February 27th, a commercial salvage tug, the Tavliris-operated Foti Krylov, took the Volga Meridian under tow. The tanker was towed to Las Palmas in the Canary Islands, arriving on March 4th. Spanish authorities impounded the vessel pending investigation and verification of its registration, insurance status, and cargo ownership. The investigation revealed what Western intelligence had long suspected. The Volga Meridian's ownership chain passed through 7 shell companies across 4 jurisdictions: Gabon, the Marshall Islands, the UAE, and Hong Kong. The ultimate beneficial owner was traced to a Russian businessman with documented connections to the Russian Ministry of Energy, though formal proof of state ownership remained legally ambiguous. The cargo, 730,000 barrels of Urals blend, sat in the impounded tanker's tanks in Las Palmas harbor, becoming a legal and diplomatic puzzle. Senegal claimed partial jurisdiction. Russia claimed the cargo was private property. Ukraine argued it was proceeds of a sanctioned oil trade and should be seized. The European Commission noted it had no legal mechanism to confiscate cargo from a non-EU flagged vessel in a Spanish port. As of early April 2026, the cargo remains in legal limbo. The tanker remains impounded. The court proceedings could take years. The operational aftermath extended beyond diplomacy and law. Within 2 weeks of the strike, GUR observed changes in Russian shadow fleet behavior. Tankers began traveling in pairs. Some activated their AIS transponders continuously rather than intermittently. A counterintuitive decision that sacrificed stealth for the protection of being visible to international maritime monitoring, making a covert strike politically harder for Ukraine. At least 2 tankers were observed with retrofitted deck-mounted radar systems, commercial marine radars modified to provide 360-degree surface surveillance, theoretically capable of detecting an incoming drone at ranges of 5 to 8 nautical miles. Russia also increased its diplomatic engagement with West African coastal states. In March 2026, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov visited Dakar, Accra, and Abidjan on a tour that Western officials described as a protection pitch, offering Russian naval cooperation in exchange for port access and political support against Ukrainian maritime operations. The response from African capitals was mixed. Senegal, still angry about the strike in its EEZ, was receptive. Ghana was cautious. Côte d'Ivoire declined the meeting entirely. For Ukraine, the operation opened new strategic possibilities and new risks simultaneously. The possibility: every shadow fleet tanker, anywhere in the world, was now a potential target. The Russian revenue stream that funded the war was no longer safe beyond the Black Sea. The geographic sanctuary that distance had provided was gone. The risk: Ukraine had escalated the conflict into waters that had nothing to do with its territorial defense. Critics, including some within the Ukrainian government, argued that the operation undermined Ukraine's moral position as a defending nation. If Ukraine could strike a tanker off Senegal, what was the boundary? Could it hit a tanker in the Indian Ocean, in the South China Sea? Where did legitimate self-defense end and something else begin? GUR's legal team had prepared for this question. Their argument rested on the law of armed conflicts provisions for economic warfare. Russia's shadow fleet constituted a military-adjacent economic asset, directly funding combat operations against Ukraine. Striking it was analogous to interdicting an enemy's supply lines, a recognized military objective regardless of geographic distance. International legal scholars were divided. The debate continues in academic journals and United Nations committees, with no consensus expected anytime soon. One detail from the operation remains unexplained. During the post-strike analysis, GUR's intelligence team reviewed the Volga Meridian's communications logs, obtained through Allied signals intelligence. Among routine radio traffic and commercial emails, they found a single encrypted transmission sent from the tanker on February 18th, 3 days before the strike, to an IP address traced to a server in Mumbai. The content of the transmission has not been decrypted. Its purpose is unknown. Was the tanker communicating with its buyer? With a Russian intelligence handler? With someone else entirely? GUR has not commented on this transmission publicly. Allied intelligence services are reportedly still working to decrypt it. Its significance may be zero, or it may reveal something about the Shadow Fleet's communication architecture that hasn't been made public. This much is certain. On the night of February 21st, 2026, a Ukrainian naval drone, launched from a civilian cargo ship, guided by commercial satellites and controlled via a SpaceX communications network, disabled a Russian sanctions-evading oil tanker 4,200 kilometers from the nearest Ukrainian soldier. The strike cost Ukraine an estimated $850,000 in total operational expenses. The financial damage to Russia's Shadow Fleet operation, in direct losses, insurance spikes, delivery cancellations, and forced naval redeployment, exceeded $200 million in the first month. The era of geographic sanctuary for economic warfare assets is over. The ocean is no longer big enough to hide. The Volga Meridian sits in Las Palmas Harbor, listing slightly. Engine room flooded. Cargo locked in legal proceedings that may outlast the war itself. And somewhere in the eastern Atlantic, at a depth of 2,100 meters, lies Drone 2. Self-scuttled. Mission complete. Never fired. A weapon that was never used. In a war that has no borders left.